Welcome to Politics of the Age. Today, we'll be discussing the period of 1840 through 1860 and the presidents and politics during that time. Throughout these years, America experienced massive upheavals due to the growing conflict between the North and South over issues of slavery, economic advancement, and finally, states' rights. This period also saw the development of new political parties, such as the Know-Nothings and the decline of the Whig Party. Let's start with William Henry Harrison, a Whig who took office in 1841. Unfortunately, the old chap kicked the bucket from a cold 32 days into office and was taken over by his vice president, John Tyler.
What's interesting about Tyler is that despite the fact that he was Harrison's vice president, Tyler did not stay true to Whig policy, vetoing all movements toward economic nationalism. His more democratic actions led to his nickname from the Whigs, his accidency.
His accidency really is an apt name for Tyler, since he was actually a Republican Democrat before he became a Whig, and left the party after Jackson's nullification proclamation, since he was technically a supporter of states' rights. This was shown later throughout his presidency, when he vetoed all of Clay's protective tariffs, the National Bank, internal improvements. In fact, after the second bank veto, his entire cabinet was so appalled that everybody but Webster resigned, and he left as soon as he returned from England. He was kind of known as the president who didn't have a party. He didn't really fit in anywhere.
Due to his wild unpopularity with both parties, Tyler was essentially guaranteed to not be re-elected. So, in 1845, James K. Polk became the next president of the United States.
Polk was undeniably the strongest president of the time until Lincoln. He was a Jacksonian Democrat and, just like Jackson himself, worked to strengthen both states' rights and the executive branch. He was a fantastic diplomat, having gained oratory skills from his stints as governor of Texas and Speaker of the House. He uses his diplomacy throughout his presidency, especially in his expansionist policies. Many called for war with Britain over the issue of the Oregon Territory, but he bartered with them instead, creating the border of the territory at the 49th parallel. Polk also won the Mexican-American War, gaining the U.S., New Mexico, and California in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo.
Oh, hello. Due to Polk's noble promise of only serving one term, in 1849, the American people elected Zachary Taylor, a Whig and military hero of the Mexican-American War. It was Tyler's moderate stance on slavery, in spite of his slave owner status, that plunged America into its greatest sectional conflict since the Missouri Compromise.
After the gold rush, thousands of settlers headed to California from all over the world to strike it rich. Instead of following the admissions procedures laid for states by the Northwest Ordinance, Taylor actually urged settlers to apply directly for statehood. However, Taylor's Southern supporters stood in the way. The ratio of free to slave states in the Senate was currently even at the time, 15 to 15. The Southerners feared the admission of California as a free state, so they pushed for the admission of California to be postponed, even going so far as to declare the South's right to the territory.
Anyone with half a brain could figure out that the admission of California was going to cause trouble. The issue of slave versus non-slave states was going to keep surfacing with new territory, just as it had with the Missouri Compromise. So, Henry Clay, also known as the Great Pacificator, proposed this compromise of 1850 in a last-ditch attempt to keep unity within the American states. California should be admitted as a free state, based on the will of our people.
No.
Yes, otherwise the noxious disease known as slavery will spread into our western borders, and I will never allow that.
Hey!
Shut up! If California is going to be admitted as a free state, the Fugitive Slave Act must be strengthened.
Well, if the Fugitive Slave Act is strengthened, then slavery must be abolished somewhere else. Like the District of Columbia.
The District of Columbia?
Shut up.
Deal.
I speak for the Texans. We want $20 million compensation for you Northerners taking our land.
10.
15.
10.
Deal.
Furthermore, New Mexico and Utah should decide their slave-owning fate by popular sovereignty.
Deal.
Deal.
Deal. Compromise!
Oh, hello there. The Fugitive Slave Act is one of the more appalling pieces of legislation in America's history. It has its origins in the Constitution. Article 4, Section 2, Clause 3 states that any slave shall be delivered upon claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due. This clause, however, did not provide any legal means for capturing fugitive slaves. Therefore, in 1793, the Fugitive Slave Act was issued, which allowed slave owners the ability to go to court and to capture their fugitive slave, even in free territory.
In 1842, a challenge was made to this federal law. Edward Prigg, a slave hunter, brought Margaret Morgan to the Pennsylvania government, asking for permission to bring her back to Maryland. Pennsylvania refused, on the grounds that he hadn't provided sufficient proof of her enslavement. This incensed Prigg, who brought Morgan back anyway. Pennsylvania then charged Prigg with kidnapping. Prigg didn't like this very much at all, so he brought the case to the Supreme Court, who ruled in Prigg's favor. This decision is key to America's development because not only did it strengthen federal authority over the authority of the state, but it also strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act and therefore the institution of slavery itself.
In 1850, Millard Fillmore was signed in as the 13th President of the United States and the last Whig president, following Zachary Taylor's untimely death after a 16-month term. Fillmore mainly influenced the Compromise of 1850 in his domestic affairs, supporting it despite Taylor's condemnation of it. This splintered the Whig Party further, leading to the phrase, "God save us from Whig vice presidents." However, despite his inefficiency at home, Fillmore was active in foreign affairs, sending Commodore Matthew Perry to Japan and prevented the takeover of the Hawaiian Islands by Francis Napoleon III. In 1854, he was not re-elected by the Whig Party, and in 1856, he was yet again denied the presidency by the Know-Nothing Party.
The Know-Nothings were a group created largely due to xenophobia. They aimed to reinforce Protestant morality in the face of Catholicism brought in by German and Irish immigrants. They also hoped to restrict voting in positions of political power to native-born Americans, keeping immigrants out of office. Their actual name was the American Party, but they were given the nickname of the Know-Nothings due to the secrecy of their group. Whenever a member was asked about the society, the protocol reply was, "I know nothing." They later evolved into a subset of republicanism. The Republican Party was the culmination of several different parties. Free Soilers, abolitionists, and Northern Democrats and Whigs all came together out of outrage about the Kansas-Nebraska Acts. The acts reopened territory closed to slavery under the Missouri Compromise to the possibility of slavery. Thus, in 1854, all these parties came together under the common goal of keeping slavery out of the Kansas-Nebraska territories.
By 1852, sectional conflict had not only affected the nation, but the Whig Party as well. This gave Franklin Pierce an easy victory in the election. Franklin's strong support of the Compromise of 1850 gave people hope that unity of the Union would be preserved. However, this was not the case. Franklin supported the Fugitive Slave Act, which angered many Northerners. Pierce's failure to pass many acts, such as the Transcontinental Railroad and annexation treaty with Hawaii, were largely unsuccessful because of sectional divisions. These differences only pushed the U.S. further towards the Civil War.
Oh, hello there. The next president, James Buchanan, was an inadequate president who did nothing that did not help inflame tensions between the North and South. He was a Democrat who was president from 1857 to 1861. He thought he could tide over both sides by making compromises and maintaining a sectional balance of the people he appointed, an insufficient plan that he failed as he favored the South in most of his decisions. He alienated both his opponents and his own political party and began to hope for a compromise that would never come. In defeat, Buchanan waited out the rest of his time in office in a state of political inactivity. Throughout the presidencies of the time, the United States faced its fair share of discrepancies. The political world came out of its relative calm under the one-party system of the Republican Democrats and into its modern political sphere of Democrats versus Republicans. Outside of party politics, the issue of slavery re-arose into the political realm with the Compromise of 1850 and the Fugitive Slave Act. Problems such as this, states' rights, and economic development led directly to the toughest problem the nation had yet to face, the Civil War. Tune in next time for the full story, as you've never heard it before. Okay, we're good, we're good. How do you press?
Oh, it's coming off.